Okay, I will now present another possibility about the distance and timing of planet Nibiru's arrival. If you recall earlier in this video, I suggested that the various ancient Sumerian, Babylonian, Assyrian and biblical descriptions of the Nibiru star system appear to match closely with the recently discovered TRAPPIST-1 star system. So let's just say, for argument's sake, that the TRAPPIST-1 star system is in fact the Nibiru star system. The problem with that scenario is that according to the official data for the TRAPPIST-1 star system, it is supposedly located 229 trillion miles away from planet Earth, which would mean that it would take 39 years to get there if your spacecraft was travelling at the speed of light. But that's not even taking into consideration that it would probably take approximately 1,000 years for TRAPPIST-1 itself to travel to its closest point near the Earth, for us to be able to see it in the skies. However, judging by the amount of deception and lies being perpetuated today in the media, especially during these evil last days, there is always the possibility that the distance of the TRAPPIST-1 star system has been greatly exaggerated by NASA in order to discredit the idea that TRAPPIST-1 is in fact the Nibiru star system. Okay, so bearing in mind that I have already presented strong evidence which shows that TRAPPIST-1 is the Nibiru star system, but if we choose to believe that the official NASA data for TRAPPIST-1 is accurate, and it is indeed located 229 trillion miles from planet Earth, in that scenario, this would mean that Nibiru would not be arriving within close proximity to the Earth at any time soon, especially during the lifetime of the average person currently alive. So theoretically, Nibiru would arrive approximately roughly 1,000 years from the date that this video was made. This would appear to fit in with the soon to be expected event of Jesus Christ's 1,000-year reign on the earth, prophesied in the Bible, where he will rule the earth for 1,000 years when he returns to the earth at his second coming. So let's say, just for argument's sake, that Christ does indeed return to the earth by the year 2030 AD. If we add 1,000 years onto that date, it works out to the year 3030 AD. And if you recall, according to Zechariah Sitchin, the last time that Nibiru supposedly passed close to the earth was the year 560 BC. So if we work out the length of time between 560 BC and 3030 AD, we are provided with a time span of 3,590 years. Now, doesn't that number sound familiar? Remember that planet Nibiru supposedly passes by the Earth once every 3,600 years approximately. Now things begin to make more sense. Okay, so let me just simplify that theoretical timeline for you. If we take a look at this chart, over on the left we can see that during the year 560 BC, Nibiru passes close to the Earth. And sometime around the year 2030 AD, Christ returns to the Earth, which is also the start date of his 1,000-year Earth Kingdom. Then his 1,000-year kingdom comes to an end around the year 3030 AD. Coincidentally, at the same time that planet Nibiru passes by the Earth. By the way, if you look at the top of the image, you can see that the overall time span of these events is approximately 3,600 years, which is the expected orbit time of Nibiru. However, I have reason to believe that planet Nibiru is currently a lot closer to the Earth than we think, and will probably arrive in close proximity, being visible again in the skies sometime during the second half of the imminently expected 7-year tribulation period, when Jesus Christ is due to return to the earth. I say this because the following Bible verses make it clear that the dragon planet Nibiru, along with its trailer trash of space debris, i.e. comets, will be responsible for causing a meteor holocaust, which will destroy everything on the surface of the earth, driving any survivors to take refuge in mountain caverns and underground bunkers. Here are the verses. Revelation chapter 12 verses 3 to 4. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, a great red dragon, and with his tail he dragged a third of the stars of heaven, which he threw down to the earth. Revelation chapter 6, verses 15 to 16. Then the kings of the earth, and the nobles, the commanders, the rich, the powerful, and every slave and free person hid inside the caves and among the rocks of the mountains. And they said to the mountains and the rocks, "Fall on us and hide us from the face of the one seated on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb." Isaiah chapter 2, verse 19. People will flee to the holes of the rocks and into the caves of the earth, from the terror of Jehovah, and for the glory of his majesty, when he ariseth to shake terribly the earth. Luke chapter 23, verse 30. Then they shall begin to say to the mountains, "Fall on us," and to the hills they will say, "Cover us." Psalm 97, verse 5. The mountains will melt like wax at the presence of Jehovah, the Lord of all the earth. 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 10. The day of the Lord will come like a thief, in which the heavens will pass away with a great noise. The elements will be destroyed by fire, and the earth and its works will be laid bare. 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 12. As you look forward to the coming of the day of God, when the heavens will be destroyed by fire, and the elements will melt in the heat. In the following end-time Bible verses, they appear to be describing an Earth polar axis shift, which is what Nibiru is famous for causing each time it passes by our planet. Isaiah chapter 24, verse 20. The earth will stagger like a drunkard. Isaiah chapter 24, verse 1. Behold, the Lord Jehovah shall make the earth empty and make it waste, and will turn it upside down. Revelation chapter 6, verse 14. Heaven was rolled up like a scroll, and all of the mountains and islands were moved out of their places. Many thousands of years ago in the past, sometime before the great Noah's Ark flood, the inhabitants of ancient Egypt became familiar with the Ankh symbol crucifix or cross. The Ankh symbol was introduced to them by their god Ra. You can see him holding it in his hand. Now, according to Zecharia Sitchin, he found extensive evidence that led him to believe that the true identity of Ra was in fact Marduk, the chief Anunnaki. Oh, and by the way, you can also see the Nibiru serpent planet symbol above his head. I'll come back to this later. Zecharia Sitchin also found evidence to support the idea that the word Ankh is a shortened version or abbreviation of the word Anak. Bearing in mind that the Anak are the fallen angels of the Bible, who are also known as the Anunnaki, it would be logical to assume that the Ankh symbol is the symbol of the Anunnaki people from the Nibiru star system. And if we also examine the overall cross shape, including the circular shaped upper portion, we can see that it is a clear representation of planet Nibiru, the planet of the crossing, which would automatically mean that it is also the symbol of Nibiru. In this ancient Egyptian tapestry, we can actually see the Ankh crucifix directly linked to the Nibiru red disc by a pair of arms. And in this ancient Egyptian carving, we can clearly see the Nibiru serpent symbol linked directly to the Ankh crucifix. Now, bearing in mind that today the Muslim people are unknowingly worshipping Marduk, the chief Anunnaki, who is currently in the guise of Allah, please check the powerful evidence for this in my other video titled Marduk Allah is Satan. However, that's not even taken into consideration that sometime in the near future, during the forthcoming 7-year tribulation, the biblical Antichrist, who is completely possessed with Marduk's spirit, will convince all the lost people of the world to worship both planet Nibiru and Marduk. Remember that earlier in part 6 I showed how the dragon is a symbolic representation of both planet Nibiru and Marduk. The following end-time Bible verse confirms that the dragon, i.e. Nibiru and Marduk, will be worshipped by the world. Revelation chapter 13 verse 4, and the whole earth worshipped the dragon, who gave authority to the beast. But to further support the idea that Nibiru and Marduk will be worshipped during the 7-year tribulation period, we need to examine ancient Egyptian history. Many thousands of years ago, before the Great Flood, the people of ancient Egypt were ordered by Marduk in the guise of Ra to worship planet Nibiru as well as himself. This is confirmed by the following ancient Egyptian carvings and tapestries. In the Egyptian tapestry on the right, we can see 2 Egyptian women bowing down in worship to the planet Nibiru symbol in the form of the Ankh crucifix linked to the red disc. In this depiction, we can actually see an Egyptian servant bowing down in worship to both Nibiru and Marduk. It is also important to emphasize that during the 7-year tribulation period, Marduk may even be worshipped by his original name. Not Allah, but actually Marduk.